Okay, let's go to the newsmaker line. And a lot of people have been anticipating an interview like this. Eric Rittmeyer joins us, a former U.S. Marine and mental toughness expert on ending the craziness and quarantine insanity surrounding coronavirus. Eric, welcome to the Schilling Show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rob. It's great to be here.
Hey, let's step back and take a bird's eye look at our soft society. You know what I mean. It seems to me that we have become soft as a nation. Do you agree?
I could not agree more with you. We most certainly have.
What happened? What happened from the greatest generation that was a sacrifice and didn't flinch at things that came at us to the softness we see today?
Well, I think it's multi-level here. I talk a lot about this, and at the core, at the foundation of everything, I believe it's a lack of family structure. I think if you look at statistics as far as single-family households are concerned, you go back to the 1960s where just 9% of kids grew up in houses without both parents. We're now up to 25% of kids are growing up with a single-parent household. If you want to go to the real core of it, that's where I believe it all begins. You just have kids, unfortunately, that are being raised without being made a priority in their house. They're not shown the proper love, I believe, and that just transfers into other things. You look at the social media situation we're in right now. It's the social media over social interaction. We're not teaching our kids basic communication skills. We're more worried about grades in school than we are about how they communicate with their neighbor.
Yeah, it's pretty sad to see all of this taking place. So you are a mental toughness expert. If we look at the topic of mental toughness, no one's really talking about that right now, and some people might even think that it's somehow inappropriate to have a conversation like this. Tell us why it's important and what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And this is what I'm so passionate about because I feel like the way everything's being viewed right now is what I refer to as a single variable analysis, meaning that we're viewing this whole coronavirus thing 100% based off of how do we protect ourselves physically and not getting sick, which I'm not going to take away from the fact that we do have to emphasize that. Physical health is obviously very important. But instead of looking at it from just a single variable analysis, it has to be a multi-variable analysis, meaning that don't just look at the immediate impact that it has on our health, our physical health, but how about the long-term emotional health impacts? Not every person that goes into these type of catastrophic events enters them with the same level of mental preparedness. So the way I'm going into this social isolation, I'm prepared different mentally than you are, than your mom is, than your neighbor is. We can't assume every person's going into this with the same level of mental clarity when we have people that are already right now maybe teetering on being isolated or being lonely. This could really push them over the edge and cause them to go into this downward spiral that I believe we're not looking far enough in advance to the adverse impacts that this social isolation is going to cause.
So let's talk about that. What are we doing wrong, and how should we right the ship?
Yeah, well, and I don't know if it's a matter of doing it wrong. I think what's most important is to really get a definition or to get an understanding of what we're asking people to do.
Okay.
So when we look at social isolation or when we look at social distancing, what it's really about is physical distancing. So we can be physically separated but emotionally together. So first and foremost, the physical piece of it's one part. We can still remain emotionally attached, which we should. So now that we take social distancing, let's get a definition of that and look at what we're asking people to do. We're asking people to basically suppress something that is evolutionarily hardwired as an impulse for us to connect with other humans. It's what we're made to do. When you tell people, no, you cannot do that, that is going to have impacts on people. Now, to what degree, how bad, we don't know that yet. But you look, I hate to go back to like the Great Recession from 2008, and this is an extreme example, but there were over 14,000 suicides that followed that Great Recession. So what we have to do is we have to make certain that we're not devoting 100% attention to the physical piece, but we also have to designate some sort of our attention towards long-term effects, and especially our kids. Our kids are going through a tough time right now.
Well, they certainly are. So let's talk a little bit about that and if there's ways that we can help our kids to become mentally tougher in this while still being compassionate toward them.
We sure can, Rob, and I think where it all starts with our children especially is to know that our children, number one, need facts. They need information. They don't need to go to social media and watch kids eating laundry detergent. You know, we don't need them getting information from sources like that. We need to be frontline defense for them, and I think what's really important is we have to know that the mental capacity of our 3-year-old child is going to be different than the mental capacity of our 15-year-old child. So to talk on their level and to give them information based on what they're mentally capable of handling is very, very important, and addition to that, it's asking their questions, but allowing them to ask us. So when they ask us a question and we give a response, we don't need to teach them quantum physics at 4 years old if they don't need to know that. Let's give them the facts, and let's let them understand that your feelings right now, your fears you have, it's okay to be fearful. But what are your fears tied to? Your fears aren't tied to facts. Why don't we use facts to help guide our emotions, to help guide our fears?
Okay, so that's an important point, yes, and then we have to contend with what the president refers to as fake news and what other people are concerned about as disinformation, misinformation. So where do we start when we want to make sure that what we're telling our children and others is accurate?
Well, us personally, we have to get a grasp. We have to get a hold of ourselves, Rob. So as children are going to follow our lead. So if we're in freak mode, they're in freak mode. Okay, it's like being in the Marine Corps. It's lead by example. When times get crazy, you keep your cool. You maintain under pressure. Our kids are going to rely on us for this. So for us, again, it's critically important that we're able to process accurate information, to use both parts of our brain here. We don't have to automatically assume because we see something on television that it's accurate. Let's get facts on it, and let's be the filter for our kids so they're not getting information from places that's going to put them even to a worse place because they're hearing these things and they're fearful. This is really the equivalent of their 9/11 if you think about it. I mean, there's no food on the shelves. There are people dying. The schools are shut down. Our kids need us to be the front line for them to make certain that they're not going to freak out and they're not going to have long-term adverse impacts from this.
We've got about a minute left with Eric Rittmeyer, former U.S. Marine and mental toughness expert. So let's finally talk about what we should learn and take from this experience as individuals.
Yeah, I have two hypotheses on this one, Rob. So hypothesis number one is more of a pessimistic approach to it, and what I'm hoping does not happen. But what I'm hoping does not happen is you have these categories of people who, number one, the ones who are already suffering from some sort of social isolation, some loneliness issues. This event we're in right now could exacerbate that, make it worse. Then we also have the people who are maybe teetering. They were like okay, but they were just teetering on that isolation thing. This could push them over the edge and put them into a downward spiral, which I'm guessing, assuming, hoping that's not the case. I believe my second hypothesis is what's accurate. It's going to require us as a nation to we're going to have to increase our level of awareness, and we're really going to have to start to rely on things maybe we weren't relying on before. Our relationships, our friendships, going back to the roots here to understand that in times of stress, it's proven by lab studies, it's proven. In times of stress, we rely on our friends. They help us get through these things. Cardiovascular results as well.
Indeed. Eric Rittmeyer, if people want to get more information on the work that you do in mental toughness, would you tell them how?
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you. My website's best, mentaltoughness.com. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you so much for joining us today on The Schilling Show.